please come into my room.
And welcome back. This is episode 4 of the MUstaSH Room podcast. I'm your host, David Ben. Thanks for tuning in, whether it's your first time or your nth time. Thank you. We really appreciate it. Trying to spread the word about mushrooms. Mush love is the phrase that they use in the industry. I don't know if I'm qualified to use it, but I will. Fuck it. I'm a neo-hippie. Here you go. Neo-hippie meaning no patchouli oil, but yes, I love just being more in touch with my spiritual self and not being evangelical about mycology, fungi, and how that can change your life. But hey, those that want to listen, here we are. That's what the podcast is for. On today's episode of the MUstaSH Room, inside the MUstaSH Room, we have my good friend Will. And Will is a musician, and Will actually gets paid to perform music. And so he's going to tell us, or kind of, we're going to talk about how music and psychedelics kind of go hand in hand. With some great music and the right mindset and setting, man, you can really heighten your senses with some good music. So Will weighs in on that. Really cool dude, has a good perspective, so he's a lot of fun to talk to. Jill, not Will, but also Will likes to use the phrase "at will." So how coincidental is that? So be on the lookout for "at will." Wifey Jill, not Wifey Will. Wifey Jill joins us to talk about the chaga mushroom, which has some pretty awesome health and medicinal benefits. So check that out. That's at about the 10-minute mark. Well, with the intro, we'll say the 12, 13-minute mark. I also have the introduction of a new segment where I talk about integration, or I kind of go through the integration process, which is post-psychedelic experience, and just kind of talk about what happened, how I interpreted it, what I resolved it to, and it was kind of interesting. Jill joined me on that segment, and she kind of got a little bit emotional. So it's a powerful piece. I tried to keep it light, but it's something that I want to delve into a little bit more and just make sure that people can share their thoughts and really just look a little bit deeper into the experience and how they can get better meaning from it, if that makes sense. So that'll be fun. And I do want to acknowledge the unofficial sponsors on this podcast. Again, they have no affiliation. They don't know I exist, most likely. And I'm just letting you know who I'm a fan of, basically. Unofficially, today we're going to acknowledge the Home Depot. Anything that you need to build a monotub is most likely at Home Depot. Recently, they've been out of a lot of Rubbermaid tubs and other things. Maybe people are building their own mycology cultivation environment at home, or they're using it just to pack shit out of the garage. Either way, I love Home Depot. Also, the internet, specifically YouTube. If you need to learn anything about mushrooms, I learned everything from YouTube, from the internet, just like you can. I can be the prophet, the proxy for all this stuff, I should say. And so I can, I can give you as much as I can, but ultimately, if you look under the hood yourself, there's tons of shit online. Again, as I'd mentioned previously in an episode, these are not the most well-groomed and aesthetically pleasing individuals that lead the mushroom industry. I personally find myself to be a very handsome man. That's what my mom tells me all the time. But these guys, hey, they know what they're doing, but they're not going to walk the runway anytime soon. With that being said, enjoy. This is the 4th installment of the MUstaSH Room. Here you go.
My bigger problem, David, is that the way that my brain works is that I can see the finished product or hear the finished product, but I often ignore all the details that are required to reach that end.
Right. Measure twice, cut once methodology. Sounds good. Not always attainable depending on the timeline.
No, it's measure twice, cut 10 times.
Oh, 10 times. Okay.
But when you have a team behind you,
yeah,
that's great. You can focus on the end result, but doing all this stuff and trying to build a personal brand.
Sure.
You go, okay, I can't skip these details. I've got to take the time to do these things right.
Well, Godspeed, man. So this podcast, just since this is the first time you're on, and hopefully this will be the first of many times that you join us on the podcast, But since it's your first time, we try to gear it around mushrooms, mycology, fungi, in some way. But I want to relate it in your sense because you're a musician and you actually get paid to perform music, so you're a professional musician. Um, as a musician, I know like psychedelics. I call them entheogens. The psychedelic whatever your flavor is, they really kind of feed into the musician's writing process and creativity process. And I guess I wanted to kind of get your perspective as a musician on like how that stuff may influence you, or of it influencing others that you admire or that and just kind of share that with us because I think it'd be interesting for me and the listening audience.
It's interesting, and it's a long-standing relationship, and even the Allman Brothers have an album called Mycology
No
from
shit, I
way
didn't know
back
that.
in the day. Yeah, and it's kind of a greatest hits album, but it's remakes, and uh, I can't remember exactly what's on it, but I listened to that album constantly years and years ago.
Very cool.
But it's the mushroom scene, as far as musicians go, it's more of a something that's taken uh, when you're taking in music more as trying to write and put it out.
Okay.
It kind of connects you to what's going on a level that maybe you can't access when you're drinking or doing other things, or even sober.
I agree with that
um,
for sure.
but it certainly, I could see in how it opens people's minds to different perspectives, different outlets, even in the performance aspect. How are you presenting your light show, or putting together a more broad show that draws people into the music you're playing that are on that different level, where it's
Oh, so you know that you have access to heightened senses. So it's your responsibility because that's your audience to tap into those heightened senses.
correct. And
Ah,
the ones that do it best do it phenomenally. I mean, think about especially the jammier bands, or the rock bands. Allman Brothers is one that comes to mind, but Widespread Panic, even Dave Matthews to an extent, make sure that the show you're taking in, while the music is phenomenal, there's a lot more going on visually that makes it a holistic experience when you go to see these bands live.
very cool. So like the Fishes of the world, the Grateful Dead, um, the Pink Floyds, they've found a way, one way or another, to tap into those heightened senses with the visual light shows and that kind of stuff that accompany them. They've kind of found their little niche.
Sure, and it probably wasn't Dave himself, but someone on his team certainly knew what they were doing.
Hell yeah.
And when you talk about the Dead and Pink Floyd and those guys, while I'm sure there were a lot of mushrooms going around, they were kind of the pioneers of LSD and acid. So
Yeah.
a much different, but along the same vein, I suppose.
Yeah, still an entheogen, still a psychedelic. I personally, I don't know how to manufacture LSD, so for me, if I can grow it, then at least I'll entertain the consumption. At this point, that's kind of where I'm at. I may graduate to that, and I don't discount it. But yeah, LSD for me, um, still haven't fully tamed the beast. I did it as a kid, and it was like recreational, but I've never done it therapeutically. So I'd be interested to head down that path at some point.
it's it you know it's not for me.
Yeah,
It's a little too all encompassing and intense,
it is very
and
intense, from what I remember.
I have the tendency, even if it's just drinking or smoking cigarettes, to overdo things.
Sure.
So I tend to stay away from things that are very intense.
Oh, yeah. Sounds like a good time to interrupt and provide you with a health segment from Wifey Jill. Here we go. Thank you, Wifey Jill.
Thank you. Happy to be here, as always.
How big is our baby right now?
The size of a pear.
The size of a pear. Our
You
baby
know,
girl, size of a pear.
I should find a mushroom that it compares to every week. You know,
Although
like
at a
this
certain
week
point,
it's well, lion's mane kind of runs rampant, but
that's true.
like portobello or
I do like that.
yeah,
That's very in line with the theme of this podcast.
yeah.
So I brought you back. Thank you so much for taking time out of your puzzle assembly process.
Painting actually.
Okay. So at one point you were doing a puzzle.
I know I love puzzles.
How many pieces was that puzzle?
They're usually 1,000 plus.
All right. So
I mean, no silly games for me.
sorry. So when I read a book and the book is like 50 pages and I'm still overwhelmed,
You read a book?
that touche. We'll just move right past that.
Article, maybe?
All right. So Wifey Jill with furry son Brody on her lap and our future daughter in her belly. Please tell us which mushroom is being profiled today in your segment.
We are going to be talking about chaga.
Chaga.
Chaga, chaga mushrooms.
And we verified the pronunciation. It's
We did.
definitely chaga.
Not shaga.
Shaba. Boy.
Oh, Shaba. I love that song.
Chaga
ASAP
ranks.
Rocky. Is that it? Maybe.
No, Shaba ring. Anyway, go ahead.
All right. We're talking about shaga. So if anyone hasn't heard of it or seen it, I would imagine that, over the past year or so, shaga has been, more popularized with different extracts that are being sold on the market, mushroom coffees, mushroom teas. It is one of the superfoods, highly nutrient dense mushrooms that are out there that has a significant amount of benefits, that you can ingest and really get some good out of. But I have to say, you have to Google this mushroom if you've never seen it before. And David just looked at it, and his face is cringing.
Ooh, it just looks like some burnt bark.
or like dried bear turd.
Yeah.
Like it looks like a piece of liquid turd that was set on fire, and it's got like this dark, like black bark. It looks nothing like a mushroom. The flesh actually within it is orange, just to give you a little bit more of a distinction.
Wait, let's pull that up here because I have to see an orange flesh.
Yeah. So yeah, it's I can't say that I've confirmed whether these are edible or not, but definitely the benefits from it that can be extracted into teas and mushroom powder, mushroom coffees.
Oh, so you're not sure if you can eat it in its raw
So
sense.
I would say, yeah, if like let's say you wanted to cut this mushroom off the tree, because these are found in Northern America. They're mostly grown on birch trees. So that is the substrate that you're looking at.
Birch is also where Amanita muscaria are commonly found.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it looks like these are grown on live trees, not necessarily like a dead log or something that you would, particularly bury like some other forms.
Yeah, I have a picture pulled up here. It looks like burnt sweet potatoes.
Oh, that's a good, like thrown in the campfire, burnt, charred sweet potatoes.
Yeah, these are not attractive mushrooms.
No, and
they're not trying to lure you in with their beauty. This is
No,
far
no,
from
no,
the Amanita
no.
If the Amanita muscaria is like the most beautiful mushroom on the birch tree, this is the least beautiful mushroom on that same tree. It is the ugly duckling of the family, to say the least. However, from a medicinal standpoint, yeah, I think Folgers has a chaga variation now. So yeah, Jill, when you say it's gaining steam medicinally and just for health values, I totally agree.
Yeah, and so they're very ugly, but they pack a punch when it comes to lots of benefits that you can obtain from these. So some of them, it is a nutrient dense superfood of wide variety of vitamins, minerals, including B vitamins, vitamin D, potassium, amino acids, fiber, manganese, calcium. It has the effect of slowing down the aging process that can be brought on from oxidative stress.
Wow.
So that could be like exposure to sun or pollution that our body is, the free radicals that we're trying to neutralize and maintain our health. It's been shown to lower cholesterol. Also preventing and fighting against cancer. Chaga mushrooms can also work well with a lot of medicines out there that essentially provide significant side effects. So the chaga mushroom can help lessen some of those side effects. So for instance, chemotherapy, chaga would be, a great addition to your therapy there.
Yes, I see here it says that 2010, it found it could slow the growth of lung, breast, and cervical cancer cells. That's
Yep.
amazing.
Yep. It lowers blood sugar. It can fight inflammation, which right now I feel like inflammation is a hot topic when it comes to health overall.
Sure.
Lowering blood pressure, supporting the immune system, which is always important. So yeah, not just just a few experts on this, but studies like you had mentioned that will actually detail some of the benefits and can support the research.
That's awesome. And the fact that you can get it so easily, like in a powder form or some sort of edible format, aside from having to eat the burnt looking sweet potatoes. That's a nice option. I like the fact that they've bundled them pretty easy, so you can take them just like any other pill.
Yeah, and I am looking it up. So it does look like extracting it is the way to go to get the most bang for your buck. Again, I cannot confirm if it's poisonous by any means, if you ate it raw, or what other side effects if you were to just eat it off the tree. But so if you do find it in the wilderness, props to you. We have not come across those, and it would be interesting, to keep our eyes out for those. But yeah, so definitely, it's readily available with, many different companies and products. So I would suggest starting that route. We've actually we have some mushroom tea and some mushroom coffee. It's got a blend of mushrooms. So I know the chaga is present in most of those, and very faint taste. Usually it's got some cinnamon or cocoa to kind of offset it, but the taste is pretty good.
Awesome. And I, looking at the pictures of this of the chaga mushroom online, there are a couple cool apps that I found. I haven't used them extensively yet because I haven't really been foraging since COVID has been kind of keeping me in the house. But there's one of them is called Shroomify. That's SHROOMIFY, and it has the ability to identify fungi. Has the ability to kind of learn about different strains and deadly and poisonous fungi and all kinds of stuff. So if you are out foraging and you see something that looks like chaga, looks kind of gross, but piques your interest, try one of these apps, see if you can get confirmation, and at least give yourself a little bit more confidence that you're harvesting what you think you're harvesting.
So you take a picture of it, and then it'll display back with what it is, or is it sent to experts?
Good question. So there's an identify fungi portion of the app where you can look at characteristics and kind of match them up that way.
Okay.
You can also search by name. And then I don't think this one has where you can take a picture and have it resolve it to a strand. But there's another one in here that I found that I think does that. And that one is called... I don't even think it has a name here. This one was maybe on the sketchy side. But there are some where it'll actually take a photo and try to resolve it to a strand of mushroom. So a couple cool things to have in your toolbox, just in case you're out there and, you're stranded and hungry, and God only knows, you make the wrong decision with a mushroom. It could go really poorly.
Yeah, foraging I feel like is taking off, and people need to be aware of the correct and proper ways to forage, to keep the species alive and keep it going, because they will reproduce and they will grow back if you handle them correctly.
That's a really good point. Yeah, if they've already opened their veils and spread the spores, organic propagation of the species. And if you don't disrupt the mycelium to where you're preventing future growth of the mushroom. So that's a really good point. Jill, I think it's a good way to segue out. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
And hopefully everybody that listened to this segment learned a lot more about the chaga mushroom. And we love you, and continue listening. And thank you so much.
See ya.
Dude, I was able to perform an appendectomy at age 14. I think I can handle a couple mushrooms.
Isn't that just a TV show?
Jesus Christ! Did you see that unicorn? Its horn was so shiny.
This is the first installment of a new segment that I want to introduce, where I talk about integration. Let me first start off by saying, by explaining integration. Integration, basically, when you do a psychedelic experience, or when you experience some sort of entheogen, it's my new word for psychedelics. When you experience an entheogen, and that experience, the best way to kind of dissolve it, I should say resolve it to some sort of meaning, to make sure that it gives you the most value, is to do an integration session afterward. Now, it's actually been a little bit over a week since my last experience, so there's a little bit of time that's lapsed. Ultimately, I'd like to have no time, just jump right into it and be able to regurgitate everything that's fresh. But I think I still have enough in my head, and it was significant enough to where a week passing won't compromise the replay. So, new segment. Bear with me as we make this rock solid. But to help me with the experience, I have Wifey Jill. She was with me actually. Unwillingly got brought into the situation and was awesome and helped me through it and really kind of helped make it as meaningful as possible. So, Wifey Jill, thank you for being here.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi. And she's a little bit, I hope you don't mind me explaining, you're not super comfortable doing this. It's, you saw me in a very vulnerable state. And so I definitely don't want to have you feel like, I'm really kind of pulling things out of you. If something makes sense, if you want to talk about something cool, otherwise, just thanks for being here.
Mm-hmm.
So I did announce on the last podcast, we are having a baby girl, and I'm super stoked about that because it's just, I feel like it's going to be a great addition to our family, and I'm just really, really excited about the future and adding another member to this little family. But I learned the news that it's going to be a girl right before I took mushrooms, before I took psilocybin last Saturday. I took about 4.5 grams of penis envy. It was dried penis envy. It wasn't a phallic experience by any means, but yeah, I took 4.5 grams of dried penis envy, and I decided to do more of a therapeutic session as opposed to just, hey, let's see fun colors and watch cool movies. So I put on a mask, and I blocked out, all the light. I put on my headphones. I listened to Rising Appalachia, who is my recent favorite group for psychedelic experiences. I love their voices and their instruments and whatnot. So I put myself in a really comfortable state, laid on a beanbag, and just kind of got into the zone. And it took a while for me to actually really fully just fall into the experience. But once I did, I started to really internalize what's about to happen. The fact that I'm going to be a dad. All my life, I wasn't sure whether I was capable, whether I was worthy, whether I could lead another human when I basically thought I couldn't lead myself. So all those circles of doubt, those feedback loops, those things that have been keeping me from really embracing the opportunity to have a child, they all kind of came to me at once. And I had to confront them, and I had to deal with the fact that whether I like it or not, it's happening. And I can't really explain all the ins and outs of it, but I was able to really make sense at the time of what was happening. And Jill, you were there. Physically, I was crying and I was convulsing at times. But what did you see just on the outside, just being there with me?
Well, I didn't see you until like an hour and 45 minutes had gone by. You had come down, and I looked at the clock and I knew that it was like still full-fledged, like it was still going. And you were just laying there, and I was trying to comfort you, and convulsing is accurate to describe. You looked extremely uncomfortable, and I did not like it.
Yeah. And going back, if I could go back in time, I think I wasn't being respectful by just doing it without running it by you first. I just thought, hey, I'm going to do this. It's going to be for my own introspection and therapy, and it's not going to involve you. But ultimately, there's always the possibility that a shroom experience can really go way outside. I should say an entheogen experience can go way outside of the expectations. So, your setting, your set, your intentions, all those things are super important, and I didn't do a good job of establishing that. So I do want to apologize. If and when this happens again, I absolutely want to make sure that it's a mutual understanding and approval going into the process.
Well, you had taken that amount before,
Yeah.
and it was by no means this experience. So, knowing that you were doing it, it was completely fine. Like, I was gonna do my own thing. You were gonna watch movies and listen to music and just have fun. And it just turned out to be a more serious experience than you've ever had.
Yeah.
The first 10, 15 minutes of having to hold you and you being vulnerable was, really, it really warmed my heart that, you trusted me to be that person. But then I am not a shaman. I don't know how to handle those situations, and I did not like it.
Yeah. And I could tell that. I tried to allay your concerns and say, hey, this is positive and, this isn't negatively impacting me. But,
And I knew it was fine for you. I just don't think you knew it for me.
right. And again, I apologize. And if I could go back, I would, definitely get buy-in from you to do that. So if you're listening and you want to head down that path, definitely make sure you have a conversation with whoever's going to be around you, right? Otherwise, it'll turn out to be something that more than you bargained for. But yeah, it was really cool. I mean, I don't know that I've talked about my grandpa on the podcast before, but my grandpa was really important to me. I really appreciated him later on in life. And he had 3 girls. He never had a chance to have a boy. I was his first grandson, and I was his first boy, essentially. So we really had a special bond, and we didn't always live in the same city, and so I moved away, and there's always a little bit of uncertainty from his perspective. Am I doing okay because I don't live nearby, and also with my mom and just some of the things that have happened. But I had to face all that stuff, and I had to really kind of deal with it, and it was awesome, and it was great, and I feel so much more prepared to be a dad, and I feel like there's so much more love underneath the covers in my soul because of just kind of channeling my grandpa, good old Pa. So I told my mom about that, and she was just smitten by the fact that I could somehow channel his energy because he was such a positive force and influence in her life. But yeah, having a girl, Pa had 3 girls. There's a theme, but she's going to be a little badass. And so ultimately, the reason I wanted to have this experience, and again, thanks, Jill, for being here. I think every dad, needs to look themselves in a mirror. Every prospective dad. I did that. I looked myself in the mirror. I felt all the pushback, all the angst, all that stuff, and I really just had to kind of deal with it. Powerful, hard, difficult, but really worthwhile. So I just wanted to get that out. I highly recommend anybody that's going to have that same, be a father for the first time, explore some way to just kind of, look yourself in the mirror, whether it be under the influence of a psychedelic or otherwise. I really found it to be beneficial. So I'll leave it at that. Again, regular segment, hopefully to give you on a perpetual basis to keep you informed as to how this stuff should go, how it does go, and how to avoid some pitfalls. I personally have been listening to Rising Appalachia. It's like this folk music. They're a band that I've really taken to. That genre for me, like if I'm in that headspace, I've taken psychedelics or, I just want to be in some sort of like relaxed, isolated headspace. They've been really cool. They use a lot of, the South American instruments, the didgeridoos and those kinds of things. And their vocals are fantastic.
Interesting.
How about you?
That's not one I'm in on, but I'll give them a listen.
Yeah, it's two girls. I think they went their separate ways. They're sisters and just really do a good job meshing everything together. You got anybody in particular that heightens your senses when you're under the knife, so to speak?
I don't know. My head all the time is like a kaleidoscope of different music spinning around. So, I've today just working in the garage. I've gone from Bob Dylan over to Dave Matthews, Chris Stapleton, and
That's
I
Soundgarden.
just jump when I feel like jumping. I go. Um,
Who's Chris
Tyler
Stapleton?
Childers is a constant go to. I really kind of veer toward the melancholy all the time and
Okay.
more acoustic, stripped down. I think there's a lot more feeling to that, or at least it feels that way to me. That's the way I experience it. So when I'm heightened, I always kind of try and strip down those extra trappings to
Gotcha.
get to kind of the reality and like the base meaning of these songs, right?
Very cool. And I like when you can get into the right mindset where you can just get absorbed completely into that music and then everything else just dissipates. Almost like an audible version of a float tank. Just completely at peace. that's a beautiful state of being.
And with music, that's hard for me to get to. When I really want to get to that space, it's almost silence or
Okay.
something that, because when I listen to music, whether I like it or not, there's a part of me that's analyzing what I'm hearing.
Well, because that's your genre of art. So yeah, I totally get that. That's got to be
So
tough for you to
you end up
fully
winding
disconnect.
yourself up, yeah, more than you relax.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, cool, man. I wanted to. I've been growing this strain of mushrooms. And I don't know. You haven't seen my most recent setup, have you?
I have not.
Okay, you'll have to stop by at one point and see what I'm working with. But um, I've been growing, cultivating a number of different strains, and one that I've been working with recently that's been kind of problematic and just kind of quirky is albino penis envy.
Huh.
Yeah, it's the acronym is APE. So if you see ape mycology or ape psilocybin, they're referring to albino penis envy. And the reason they call it albino penis envy is because it looks pretty phallic, almost like a penis in its most mature state of mushroom. So I've been playing with this strain, and it's almost impossible to harvest its spores. Here, let me pull up a picture, and I'll share the screen for you. Um, Share the screen.
Is this going to be like a Rorschach test or something? Will, what do you see in this mushroom?
Oh no, like a blot art kind of thing. So yeah, this can you see this?
Yes.
All right, so ape, a very strange mushroom, is the title of this on magicmyco.com. But albino penis envy, you can see here, these are little chodes. They call that an ape cluster bomb. If you're listening, these look like tiny little penis chodes. I guess that's a redundant term. But you can
That's
see
like the rat king of penises.
yeah, it's like a tri-penis. Like if you wanted a foursome with a woman with three, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know where I was going
One dude with three penises and a lady.
a foursome with only two people. So you can see here with the gills, like there's not much gill to work with. So harvesting spores from the albino penis envy is really tough. It just has like a tiny little veil, almost like it's been circumcised already kind of look to it. And so if you want to propagate this species somewhere else, you almost have to take like a culture from the flesh of the mushroom or get it in its liquid culture form. And that's how I got it, in its suspended liquid sugary form in a syringe. We haven't talked about liquid culture on the podcast too much, but that's kind of like the best way to get your mushroom cultivation process started, like with this suspended mycelium. And so, like I said, I'll talk about that more down the road. But you can see here, look, it looks like a big, fat, little chode.
Huh. It's
Yeah.
just a tip.
Yeah.
Just to see how it feels, just for a minute.
Just for a second. Yeah. So you can see, though, that it oxidizes. This one here is completely white, like through and through. Mine oxidized really quickly. So when they were exposed to the oxygen, they started to turn green. Let me see if I can find a color example of that. Yeah, so see here in this picture, the caps are green.
Yes.
It's because they've oxidized. They've kind of been exposed to oxygen for a little longer, so it starts to set in. Well, mine like got really, really green, and they didn't grow very tall, and they were really stubby and short. So I didn't get a great harvest. Normally, I'll get really plentiful harvest. Like I'll show you an example here, like this sort of harvest, like a bunch of mushrooms all in my tub. But with this albino penis envy, like here's what I was hoping to get, but mine just didn't make it there. I don't think I took an actual picture, but I was a little bit disappointed. But people say that this is an extremely potent strain of mushroom. Like if we go back to this article here, let me read this to you. Among some of the oddest fungi, and I verified that it's fungi, not fungi, because I had kind of been pronouncing it both. The oddest fungi to come through the Magic Myco lab, blah, blah, blah. The ape strain, albino penis envy. It's a hybrid of penis envy and albino PF, which I'm not familiar with albino PF, and is extremely potent. So it doesn't produce as well as other strains. They tend to be small and plump. So I guess my experience is commensurate with like what's to be expected, like a shitty harvest. but I did actually take. Let me go grab. I'm going to put this on pause. I'll just actually, if you want to talk for a second, I'm going to run over here and grab my dried albino penis envy.
Sure.
It's up to you. You're going to save the podcast.
So I'm taking over hosting duties here, but I have no one to speak to, so that'll be interesting. It's most people will probably turn off the podcast at this point. I hope not. I've been told that I have a voice for radio, which is good because I also have a face for radio. So, I hope that these soothing sounds are really drawing you in and making you wait for David to return.
Did you save the podcast?
I did. It's good now. We
It's
can
saved?
just stop here. It's only going to go downhill.
The podcast has been saved. Wow, that was clutch, man. Whenever you hand over the reins entirely for the podcast, you never know if it's going to be saved. But thank you for that. This right here, can you see these dried mushrooms?
Yes.
These are the dried albino penis envy. See how small they are? Like, these are really small.
So I'm looking at a plastic bag that says albino penis envy.
So, like, this is one of the better ones, completely dried up. This one
And
here.
that's like a thumb, like the tip of your thumb size, maybe?
Yeah. So that's one. But then here's a small one. So, like, it's just a little chode.
It's more like the tip of your pinky finger kind of
Exactly. Thing. So, I mean, like, and that was kind of the majority of them were just that tiny little nug. This right here is the actual penis envy, not the albino, but the traditional penis envy strain. Now, see this one here; those were actually much bigger.
A long stem.
Yeah, long stem. Now they did grow like a penis. I mean, these are phallic-looking structures, so you're going to get what you want. One of them is just going to be a little more unendowed or a little lacking, if you will.
So, what do you think caused that to underproduce, so to speak?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they have different requirements for the substrate, or maybe lighting or humidity requirements. I haven't done my due diligence. We lost Will. Will's out of the picture. It's my job. I have to save the podcast. Okay, I have to save my own podcast. All right, so Will's back. Just something with the growth environment. I think I have seen people online that get these. Did you just take a swig of?
No.
Will's on the other end of the podcast taking swigs of straight. What is that? Tito's vodka.
Yeah.
My man, musicians, you fucking creative bastards.
Well, it's Friday, right?
It is.
Happy hour started at 9.
I love it. So the ape strain of mushrooms, I'll have to indulge and reply back or get back to you in the audience with like how the experience goes. But supposedly that's the coup de grace, of the psilocybin strains.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And like you and I have talked about, whether it's art or growing plants or mushrooms, there's a certain amount of failure involved in experimenting and tweaking your process, and learning from those failures is an important part of the process.
Totally. Yeah, kind of reading, in your case, kind of reading the room or reading your audience, that kind of stuff. In this case, reading nature, getting nature's perspective on things, and it's an iterative process for sure, man.
It is, and there's infinite outcomes, right? There's so many inputs into the process of growing anything, really, that it becomes, once you get very good at it and you can tune in, then you can kind of direct the process a little bit, but you have to go through that learning period on any new strain, I'm sure, to go, okay, this is what it likes, this is what it doesn't like, and you introduce any small thing into that process, I'm sure it changes the whole outcome along the way.
I mean, yeah, I'm playing not God, like I'm not Dr. Moreau, but I'm growing some shit. I'm making stuff. I'm influencing science, and science is fucking cool. Whether it's information science, like I work in IT, or mycology science, shit is amazing and fascinating.
And luckily we have people who have come before us, so we don't necessarily have to start from zero. But reading about something and learning about it and then actually doing it are two very different things.
No doubt, man. No doubt. I did want to talk about one of the things that came up recently. I was talking to some guy, a guy that I trained jujitsu with, and he was telling me, talking about acid and the right setting to take acid, and we were talking about it, and we had mentioned, somebody was contemplating doing it. Um, Without telling their wife or telling their significant other, kind of like doing it secretively. And I was like, don't do that. Don't have that secret looming when you drop acid. And that kind of made me. It kind of segued in my mind. I really need to be more evangelical about set and setting when people take psychedelics. I mean, not that I'm the prophet that's here to, send the God's message to responsibly take psychedelics, but if you take them in the wrong mindset or setting, like the physical or mental setting, you can really create a bad situation for yourself. So, I
Right.
mean,
And
you can
there are
prevent
enough
it.
things there are enough things going on in my own brain
Yeah.
that I don't need to add to that stress.
Ah,
But some people kind of thrive in that high pressure kind of negative feedback scenario. I would not do it that way
it's
because that's not why I don't do anything to put additional pressure on myself. I have enough of that as it
right.
is.
Yeah, like showing up to court high. Like, don't get high that day. Go when you can go to the park and be high, not
Right.
in
And
front of the judge.
you create this negative feedback loop and it just snowballs to a point where you just want to sit in a corner in the dark and hug a teddy bear or something.
Right. Like if you want to challenge yourself, I mean, go do a Spartan Games or something, but don't challenge yourself by taking acid with a bunch of secrets in your head. They're going to drive you crazy.
Right. I've got enough of those. Let's go.
Yeah, there's so many secrets. How do I manage all these secrets plus another big one that I now have new in my head that I can just completely stress over for the next 4 or 5 hours? That sounds awful.
Right. And one sideways look just spins it all out.
Oh God.
Oh
And
no. Oh no. She found out. And then it's
yeah.
next thing you know.
Oh God. And as a kid, I mean, I learned it the hard way. As a kid, we would drop acid and then just go to some random place. Like no planning, no like are the cops going to be there? I mean, anything that could potentially drive you nuts as a kid, we didn't seek it out or be proactive in any way about that. Now, I mean, you do your homework, you prepare properly, you can have a good psychedelic experience. There's a formula to it for sure.
Right. And I think, when you're younger, you do it for a number of reasons, but it's certainly different from the reasons you do it now
Right.
after you've kind of grown up a little bit
Exactly.
and figured out, you narrow in over time what you enjoy. Whether that's art, music, television, movies, or the drugs you choose to take. You kind of figure out, okay, this is for me. This is how I like it. This is how I like to do it. That's just you mature in your taste.
Exactly. Yeah, that's and so that kind of just reminded me of times where I wasn't as responsible and I just willy-nilly went into a psychedelic experience. And if I could go back and do it again, I clearly would have been just a little bit more sensitive to the setting and definitely the mindset. But you live and learn. Yeah.
I mean, that's all you can do is hope you do better the next time, right?
Hell yeah. So, what I guess I hit you up with the music questions. What this podcast is for people that are interested in mushroom cultivation or like mushrooms for medicinal use or culinary use or just any mycology or fungi related subject matter. Do you have anything that you want to add or anything that kind of piques your interest that you want to share with the audience before I let you out of here?
So two things,
Yeah.
and one is very quick, is that until you and I started talking about this, I had never really considered where mushrooms, magical or not, came from.
All right.
They show up in the grocery store or whatever, and I take them home and eat them and enjoy them. But when you and I started talking, well, this isn't like corn where I can drive down the highway and see rows and rows of it going on. So that's just an interesting thought. It's something that I took for granted and never really considered.
Yeah.
And I'll have to explore that a little further because clearly, the portobellos I'm buying at King Supers are not grown and cultivated the same way as what you're doing.
Exactly.
even though the processes may be similar. It's just interesting that that's an industry of its own on a lot of levels, I'm sure.
There are mushroom farmers, like farmers that just that's all they do is cultivate mushrooms. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean that's unreal, right?
Yeah.
You live in the dark and the shit, and you just kind of go for it and do your thing.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a decent amount of indoor space to work with. So it's not like you can just have like outdoor crops everywhere. So it allows your real estate is a little bit managed a little bit differently. But yeah, people just focus 100% on mushrooms as their farming product.
I mean that's unreal.
Yeah.
Now the other thing, and that was just kind of that one kind of spun my mind for a minute, and I need to wrap my brain around it. But the other, I was reading a book that's basically an excerpt of interviews from the guy who did the 4 Hour Work Week.
Yeah, Tim Ferriss.
Correct. Thank you.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of his name, so I'm glad you came up with it. But one section of these interviews deals with a lot of high-powered executives and very successful people who are very into microdosing.
It's big out
And
in Silicon Valley, supposedly.
as a mood heightener and those kinds of things, it increasing perception.
Sure.
And as kind of the thought about things like marijuana and mushrooms across the country changes more for the positive, that's a really interesting thought. Instead of taking Zoloft or whatever mood enhancer you need to take, is let's try something natural and kind of unobtrusive first before we really start messing with our brain chemistry.
Oh, dude, that's such an amazing point. We've discussed that previously on the podcast. I personally take Lexapro for my anxiety, and I'm open about that. But I've done a lot of research, and long term, they say there really are no negative side effects. It actually helps mitigate dementia, but that's as much as I'll do pharmaceutical wise, other than maybe some Cialis if I have trouble. Doing my manly duties here and there. But other than that, pharmaceutically, no, man. If you could do something naturally, I mean, if you can get pain relief naturally, if you can therapeutically heal yourself, even a fraction, using something that's natural, absolutely explore that first. I mean, the fact that I used to go to therapy and talk to a therapist with all these reservations and really not get a whole lot out of it just because I was limiting myself. And for whatever reason, the chemistry wasn't there. I take some mushrooms and I really look myself in the mirror and take the time to allow that to marinate into my soul. There's no therapy like that I can pay hourly to get. I mean, that's therapy that is delivered in a mechanism that you just can't replicate with traditional means. So, I mean, if you can get that naturally, fucking A, man, yeah, do that. Hell yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's nearly impossible to step outside of
Yeah.
yourself and look back in. Too many preconceptions and things that are tied in ego and those kinds of things that are hard to strip away.
Absolutely, man. As long as the pharmaceutical big pharma has their hooks into government, you're going to have a lot of resistance to psilocybin. You're going to have a lot of resistance to cannabis. Organizations like MAPS that really try to promote the use of MDMA and other psychedelics or substances to help people with PTSD, they're not going to get a lot of traction because big pharma doesn't have their hands on it, which sucks.
Until they can figure out how to get it. It surprises me that Philip Morris and those guys haven't figured out how to break into the marijuana business. And
yeah, maybe it
do
doesn't
that.
want them. Maybe it's just because the marijuana business doesn't want them. It's so non-traditional that maybe big pharma is just it's a clash of heads. I'm hoping that's what it is. But
It's a mindset thing, certainly.
Yeah.
A lot of maybe this is the wrong word, but marijuana and mushrooms tend to be counterculture anyway.
yeah,
So I think it would be tough to get a lot of people to buy in to buying those things from a huge corporation.
right. I mean, they'll find a way to maybe make some synthetic blend of that and something else to treat. I know CBD is big for seizures and other things. They'll find some way to make some synthetic blend and put their stamp on it. But yeah, I can't see them selling flour at the pharmacy, Walgreens and CVS having like a flour section.
The Marlboro Man over there.
Oh, it's fucking amazing. Well, Will, I love you, man. Thank you for joining us on the podcast. I don't know how many people are waiting for the new episodes of this podcast to drop. I know I am. I know if I was a listener, I would be. But right now, the listening base might be limited. So feel free to spread the word. I'm working on the website and all the fluff that I need to get going. But it's just good to have you on and hear your voice, man.
Hey, my pleasure. It's a lot of fun, and I hope this was worth the wait for your listeners. It's been, a month since we've been trying to get together.
Next time, I promise it won't be as difficult. But hey, man, I will talk to you later, and we will have you back.
Sounds good, brother. Thank you.
Walk with me, baby, come on and talk with me, come on and take me downtown. Well, walk with me, baby, come on and talk with me, come on and take me downtown. Well, walk with